And we're live. It's the
From
it's
internet.
yes, live on the show that has turned social distancing into an art form. It's the Joe and Joe Weather Show.
Yes.
Were you socially distant today? It
Hold on for a second while I turn this music off.
Yes,
There you go.
it was very funereal.
Yes. I'm running about a minute behind here, and just wanted to make sure that everything was fine and dandy.
All right, as long as your chin doesn't go below the screen, we're okay with it.
All
And
right.
and and right now you're fine.
What do you think of
So
my What do you think of my new
oh,
hairstyle?
I was going to say, your hair, first of all, your colorist does an incredible job dyeing in the white hair just perfectly. You know, I've always said
Like,
that I have always said that the relationship with your colorist is a sacred relationship. I got my hair done also over the weekend. I was desperate. My God, it was so long. And
yeah.
I did it on Saturday before, everything broke loose. So
Right.
and my haircut guy, David, he actually, in all seriousness, he has a compromised. He's got a bit of a compromised immune system thing going. So he was happy to cut the hair of a 61 year old who's at as high risk as he is, or he's actually a little bit higher, but nonetheless. Got it done, and now we all feel better, and he's happy too because he got to cut my hair and make some money, and that's a good thing.
That's the good thing is to make money. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a tough thing. Oh, by the way, we got to behave ourselves. Just to let you know, Sister Gabriella Strader of the Franciscan Third Order up from Canada is watching tonight, and thank you for your prayers and kind thoughts, Sister Gabriella. Really, we do certainly appreciate it. Um, so we get quite an audience here.
Well, I think we're going to actually, in the days to come, get larger and larger as we become maybe not the only show in town, but a show that people can rely on.
Well, we're
Unlike, let's say, the late night shows where last night Stephen Colbert did part of his show from the bathtub to try to draw.
If I was young enough to be able to stay awake at that hour, I would have probably watched the show. As it is, as it is, it's tough enough for me to stay awake much past 9 or 10 o'clock these days. But anyway, I'm really tomorrow night I got to go to bed early, Joe, because Thursday Stop and Shop has the 60 and over shopping hours from 6 a.m. to 7:30. I was there today, picked up some odds and ends that were necessary, and I did not look in the toilet paper aisle. Okay, because wait a minute,
Yes.
because we got three of
Oh,
these.
oh,
Okay,
oh.
hold on. I don't know if you can see this. There you go. We might as well give Scott Paper a plug here. But actually, we mentioned this last night. We haven't opened up this package yet. Just so you know, we've got two other packages, and all of this was purchased long before any of this happened. I've always got just to be clear, I'm not one of those hoarders. It's just that usually when you go to Costco, we just sort of pick it up just to have it, and then you don't buy it for 3 or 4 months, or if I eat a lot of bran, 3 or 4 days.
Right.
So anyway,
My wife reminded me that when you asked me last night if I had a Stop and Shop in my area, I was thinking primarily of the Cortland Town Center or right in the midst of the Putnam Valley area. But if I go to Peekskill, the beach shopping center, there is a Stop and Shop there. So you know maybe I just might get the idea in my head and go on the early morning of was it Thursday now?
yeah, it starts Thursday, and also
Okay.
Dollar Tree is going to be doing the same thing for us
Oh,
for the over 60 crowd.
oh,
Having just set shopping hours for us. And actually, you know what? It makes a lot of sense because if the younger folks are at a higher risk of being carriers versus actually coming down with the disease full
right.
fledged. So It's us older folks that are at higher risk of catching the disease and having it become problematic. So if we can kind of keep the two groups separated a bit, this may work.
I
Uh,
may load up on orange juice. I've always found whenever I feel like a cold is coming on, now I realize that treating coronavirus and treating the flu or a cold is different, but heck, I mean,
it can't
generally,
hurt you.
it can't,
I have my pomegranate blueberry juice, which I bought today.
down to the almost to the bottom of my bottle of palm. That's another thing.
Yeah, I usually get it at Costco, but I really don't even want to go near Costco right now because everybody's there. So I just paid. When you buy the palm products in the local supermarkets, they're usually they're more expensive than they are when you get them at Costco. So I've just been kind of staying away. By the way, let's just really quick a couple of things. I put up some stuff on Facebook today that generated a little bit of conversation. It was Thomas. Part of this was Thomas Friedman of the New York Times was on CNBC this morning, and I uh, uh, found a tweet that he did yesterday. It kind of puts into perspective the whole concept of exponential spreading. And I think if you look at the stats today, um, I believe we went from having in the United States in the last week, we went from having 1,000 cases to 5,000 cases of
Yeah.
COVID. So that's a fivefold increase.
Right.
Okay. So
So
if you continue at that rate, hold on. Did you turn on your mic on your side?
no,
Okay.
no, I put it
Oh,
in.
that was just really weird. So if you continue at that rate, exponential rate, then if we grow our cases fivefold in the next week that follows, then the next reading a week from now would be 25,000 cases. And then if you
Right.
grow that exponentially, the week after that, we would be at 125,000 cases. This is what the issue is the fact that it's going. This is something that would be spreading and growing exponentially if we didn't do anything. And as I just said yesterday, just to reiterate yesterday, please make sure that you get your information from credible sources. Not your sister's husband's brother-in-law's cousin who works at the who's got a friend's mother's cousin who works at the State Department who heard this rumor. Okay, there's a lot of that stuff going around, and I mentioned that yesterday, and just mentioning it today since not everybody's watches the show every day. Why they don't watch the show every day is beyond me. It should be part of their regular brewing. This is better than a soap opera, for Christ's sake. So anyhow, just please, credible sources, and try to kind of separate yourself away from the noise. And by the way, I'm feeling fine. You're feeling fine, Mr. Rayo?
Yes, I'm fine. I feel okay.
Yes, very good. And that's good. And family is fine. Everybody's fine. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, the one thing I was concerned about, and I asked my sister about this. Um, my mom periodically has to go on oxygen, and I was concerned that maybe, there would be that'd be in short supply. But apparently, she's on a list, and it's kind of like my printer, for example. It knows when I'm going to run out of cartridges, and I automatically get a new batch uh, to, take care of that. And
Right.
she gets the oxygen delivered to her on a specific time scale. So that's for the moment, everybody is doing fine. And we'll
Good.
keep our fingers crossed that that is maintained in the days and maybe weeks to come.
Right. And hopefully we can get through this and they can flatten the curve and everything's good. And by the way, one of my Facebook friends who's a doctor posted, this is some of the stuff everybody's kind of getting wrapped up in all the stats in front of them. But one of the things they don't realize is, and Scott Briller, the chairman, told me yesterday, and we mentioned this last night about the fact that his mom had scheduled knee surgery for both her knees, and now that's been postponed because they have to make sure that hospital space is available. If there's an exponentially growing uh, uh, problem with regards to cases, then they're going to be taking up beds in hospitals. If something happens to you that's not related to this, so let's say appendicitis, whatever it is, you're going to run into a log jam if you have to go to the hospital and you're going to wind up having to get some kind of procedure done. So that's all part of this is all also part of the equation too. So let's all try to be patient with each other,
You know,
you know.
Governor Cuomo this morning in one of his press conferences was talking about just that fact that there are 54,000 hospital beds in the state of New York, and yet if this thing grows, unless we can flatten the curve, we might be looking at something on the order of the need for 100 to 150,000 hospital beds. And I turned to my wife and I said, this almost reminds me of the Titanic. Here was the unstoppable, unsinkable Titanic, and yet, when it hit that iceberg and started to flounder, guess what? They discovered that the number of lifeboats would not be able to complement all of the
Yeah,
people on,
exactly.
on the Titanic. And this is just like that. We have 54,000 beds, but apparently in this disaster, this in essence are hitting the coronavirus berg. We find ourselves maybe down 50 or 100,000 beds in the worst case scenario.
All right. So you know what? Look, everybody, it's horribly inconvenient. I get that. You're stuck in the house, you know, and that can be problematic. I get that. And of course, this is a major hit to the economy. Everybody's watching, with their stock investments going down and all the rest of it. Although
We actually went up today, right? The Dow
yeah, we
Jones.
had we had a little bit of another one of these, reflex rallies of 1,000 points, 5% in one day. That in the aftermarket, and for what I was looking at the trading that was going on this evening, it was in the post market. Half those gains were given back. So this has been kind of the signature of the way things have worked. I think until markets kind of get an idea of where this is all going to bottom, where we start to see some kind of a peak in the cases and maybe a light at the end of this long tunnel as far as getting things back to some semblance of normalcy, you're probably going to continue to see a lot of volatility. Uh, in my never to be humble opinion.
Now you're a horse person, right? You're
Yes,
you're into the horse thing. They're going to delay the Kentucky Derby
till
now,
September, from what I read.
right? So what does that do overall to the Triple Crown, or are they got to make a decision for the Belmont and the Preakness, right?
Well, I mean, look, if you run the Kentucky Derby, the three races run in 5 weeks. So if you run the Derby in early September, let's say you run the Derby Labor Day weekend, you can run the Preakness 2 weeks later, and then run the Belmont Stakes in at the end of September, early October. So
Right.
it is doable. It is doable,
They,
and
but they wouldn't. What I'm alluding to is that they wouldn't go ahead arbitrarily. Let's say everything goes away, and by June we're out in the clear. They wouldn't schedule the Preakness and the Belmont before the Kentucky Derby. They would align them, right? Or
I would think so. I would think that they would align them just to keep the tradition. I mean, there's no rule that says that, um, that the Belmont Stakes can't be. Let's say they were to reopen the tracks at the end of May, so you would have passed the calendar time for the Derby and the Preakness. That you couldn't run the Belmont Stakes, but the thing is, I think the whole idea is if they wind up, they're going to try to wind up keeping the Triple Crown intact, which says to me that they would move the Belmont Stakes and have you're going to reschedule the Kentucky Derby first, and then do the Preakness, and then do the Belmont. Yeah, that would be an easy enough thing to do.
okay. Well,
I,
here we
I didn't even think of that, but thanks for bringing that up.
we're 16 minutes into the show here, and we haven't once talked about anything weather related.
Well, let's do that now. Well, you know what? I certainly can see it from the fact that the way the weather's been. There isn't a whole lot of attention being. We're really more of a distraction than anything else,
Right.
and there's no real big storms to distract us. So, although there is going to be at least a little bit of something going on uh, in Wyoming and Nebraska, western Nebraska, and northeastern Colorado, where we've got winter storm watches up there. In the orange, they already have some blizzard warnings up for southeastern Wyoming and for western parts of Nebraska. And also this evening, we've got severe thunderstorm watches down in parts of West Texas, with flash flood watches up in northeast Texas. some residual winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories up in northeastern California and northwestern Nevada. And also across central Arizona, we've got some winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories there. Otherwise, for the rest of the country, it is pretty quiet. And we had a few downpours of heavy rain overnight into early this morning here, but all of that was out of here by 10 o'clock this morning, and then weather conditions. We were sitting in clouds. I got a little bit of sun for a short time, but then clouds bubbled up. It wasn't the best of days, but it certainly wasn't the worst of days either.
Yeah, and at this time of the year, you still can get, even in this part of the country, you can get a significant or substantial snowfall. Although I've always thought of St. Patrick's Day as the make or break day. After St. Patrick's Day, everything has to literally fall into place perfectly for us to get even a significant snow of a few inches. But you just mentioned out to the west, over in Nebraska and parts of South Dakota, there could be a significant snowfall in the next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the map here. So let's bring up the snowfall map from the Weather Service. Just give it time to load up. There we go. Little by
Had
little, it's coming in.
had we had the St. Patrick's Day parade in Manhattan today, it might have been a little damp in the morning. Oh, by the way, I woke up early this morning, around 6 a.m., and my deck was coated. I actually had a slight accumulation of
Oh, wow.
and also on the grass as well. I had to blink my eyes like several times to realize what had happened. Wasn't expecting that. Thought we'd just have a mixture of wet snow and rain, and that would be it. But we actually had, however slight, an accumulation. Didn't go out and measure it, but I figured, okay, add another tenth of an inch. So now I have a grand total so far this winter of 9.8 inches here in Putnam Valley, which puts me only 2/10 of an inch away from double digits. Although
There's still time.
in the 18 years I've been here, I've never had anything less than 10 inches of snow in 1 year. But this looks like it could be the
Could
year.
be. Well, they got Denver's got 3 on this, but just west of Denver is a pretty good stripe of 1 foot plus. So basically west of 20 of Interstate 25, and you can see the snows being forecast down through Colorado and into northern New Mexico, and also in that band that we showed you in Arizona of some 1 foot plus snows, and then in California. This is additional snowfall in northeastern California, northwestern Nevada, on top of the 1 to 2 feet plus that's already fallen there. So they're just having a regular party. Across the northern plains, it's about a coating to a few inches in most places, and into the northern Great Lakes. And in the Northeast, and this is going to be for Wednesday night into Thursday, as this kind of weird sort of warm front sets up and starts to come through. A coating to a couple of inches, possible in upstate, well up into upstate New York, and up through Vermont, New Hampshire, and into most of Maine. So they will just continue to add to their totals, and everybody else, as you can see, gets next to nothing. And I think the bigger story with regards to the fact that tomorrow's the last full day of winter. You've got Thursday is the arrival of spring on St. Joseph's Day, and on Friday, it looks like it could be a very warm day with temperatures well up into the 60s to near 70, as far north as Albany and on up into southern New Hampshire, and even into southwest Maine, temperatures could be in the 60s, and we're going to see 80s up from Florida through much of Georgia. Into South and North Carolina, through Virginia, and up into the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. I think it might even, if we get enough sun, Joe, we may actually see, I think, maybe an 80-degree reading pop up in southern New Jersey. Not out of the question, in my view.
Well, that's going to hinge upon as you mentioned, a warm front that's going to be mostly across the central part of Pennsylvania by Thursday evening. And then we just have to keep our fingers crossed that that front continues to move on an east-northeast trajectory through our area, probably arriving here by around daybreak on Friday morning, probably along with that some clouds and fog and also some scattered showers. But if we can manage to break into some sunshine later in the day on Friday with a strong southwesterly wind both aloft and also at the surface you're right. We could see temperatures in some areas inland reach well into the 70s, even challenge 80 degrees. That would be nice. Not bad for the first full day of spring.
Yes. So the Storm Prediction Center, just to give everybody a heads up here, this is the risk area for tonight, and it's really kind of confined to this area in Texas. But uh, during Wednesday, we actually have an enhanced risk of severe that sets up in Texas in about the same area, and actually that whole area expands northeastward up into Kansas, and also a marginal risk now being indicated for parts of Kentucky and northernmost Tennessee, as we start to see the evolution of the next round of weather changes, and then moving on into day three, the marginal risk moves up to the lower Great Lakes, including Chicago and Saint and points north, almost but not quite to Milwaukee. And you also have slight risk from northeast Texas northeastward into southernmost Illinois. I think this area could wind up getting juiced up a bit, given what's happening, what's going to be happening with regards to this next weather system.
And I'm looking here at the convective outlooks from the Storm Prediction Center. And on Thursday, they have general thunderstorm coverage activity across western New York and northwestern Pennsylvania. Kind of makes me wonder whether or not perhaps either late Thursday night or perhaps on Friday that we may actually see a little bit of convection here as we're in the warm sector and then we get to that cold front.
I
Uh,
put it in. I mentioned it on my blog post that's going to go up after the show tonight. I mentioned that there could be a shower or thunderstorm on Friday. Um, I think there's enough there to put it in. And by the way, when you look at the upper air pattern, you've got this ridge in the eastern part of the United States. You have the trough mostly in the west. The northern jet stream is just kind of swinging an arm through here during the afternoon and evening on Friday. So I think it's worth putting in. And moving forward, it looks to me like Joe, we could cool off a bit this weekend. The overall pattern, however, kind of has a very progressive look to it. We could have another weather system here approaching on Monday. I know the Dayside GFS actually had with a cold high going by to the north was trying to show some snow for Monday away from the coast, but not too far away from the coast. But I would sort of discount that. I think it's going to be pretty much the way it has been. Maybe inland and upstate New York and in New England, you might see some snow from this, but I wouldn't grasp onto any hopes for anybody else getting anything other than rain.
I would agree, especially since it's 6 days out, and we have been seeing all along potential snow and cold being advertised by all the models, really, beyond 6 days, 8 days, 10 days. European has been uh, guiltiest of all the models of doing that. So to say with any kind of surety that we could see some snow 6 days out, even though it shows on the maps now, I wouldn't buy into it, at least not just yet.
Right. So this is the system. Here we are Tuesday night, and I just want to uh, show everybody you got this system off of California here. It's pretty impressive looking upper low, and it's from this that we're seeing moisture that's getting drawn up northward out of the Pacific into the Southwest, and of course this is a cold look to things. And here comes you notice at the bottom of that trough, there's a little upper low that moves across northern Baja and into Arizona. So it's from this that we see Wednesday night, and Thursday, you start to get a low that develops there in the central Rockies, central plains, and then that's going to run up to the northeast, and it's going to also help to bring warmer air eventually up the eastern seaboard. So uh, nothing. This really just lines up the way the pattern has been. It may not be exactly the same as it's been over the last couple of months, but it's a variation of the same concept. So the outcome to me is pretty much written in stone. The weekend looks pretty good. The northern jet again swinging around with another system next Tuesday. Then we dry out, and again, notice the trough goes right back into the western part of the United States later next week with a ridge in the Gulf of Mexico trying to build northeastward up the East Coast. So again, there's no material change in the overall upper air pattern at all from what I'm seeing.
So we got come this weekend, Joe, Saturday. And I mentioned this yesterday. It looks like a pretty windy day out there. We could have wind gusts, I think, in excess of 40 miles an hour on Saturday behind that sharp cold frontal passage, and then the winds will diminish. It won't totally flatten out, but Sunday too looks like a rather breezy day as well.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Take a look here on Wednesday night, Thursday. You get this first surge of rain, and there might be a little bit of a batch of heavy rain with this Wednesday night into Thursday morning. It goes by, you get a bit of a break, then there's a second band of showers that comes in Thursday night. Now, that's where the warm front is. At this point, the low is up in northern Michigan. You've got some showers and storms from southern Ohio back into western Kentucky, western Tennessee. That low runs up into Canada. And if you look carefully here, folks, you can see the isobars are really tightly packed behind this low. It's a 984 low interacting with a 1042 high in eastern North Dakota. The gradient is very tight.
Right, and that's therein lies the therein lies the reason for the forecast or the anticipation of some rather strong gusty winds. When you have those winds, those isobars so tightly compressed to each other, relative to each other, that signals that we're going to be seeing some rather gusty breezes here out of the north and northwest as we move toward the end of the weekend to the weekend.
Yep, and that high is going to take all weekend long. You still got a pretty decent gradient here, Joe, as you said on Saturday. And the March sun heats the air up, so that kind of adds it. That usually adds a little bit to the wind because the strengthening sun does tend to want to heat the temperatures up a bit, and that also feeds into the wind equation. A little bit of a tighter temperature gradient develops along with the fact that the isobars are relatively close together, and then it just kind of relaxes a little bit on Sunday. But now here comes that next system up from the southwest of us on by Sunday night. There's actually snow on the GFS in much of central and northern Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and maybe just kind of touching northern New Jersey. But again, with the high going out the way it is, it just flies out of there from southeastern Canada by Monday morning. It's already well east of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, and you've got southeast isobars here. How is it not going to change over to rain, even if you get a couple of snowflakes at the start? And you know something, the way everything has gone, we haven't been able to even do that where we get even a little bit of snow at the start before it changes over to rain. So I don't even know why we would even see that now.
Yeah, yeah, we're practically to April, aren't we? By next
Yeah,
week, so I don't know.
yeah, I know, I hear you. Later next week looks like another system with some rain late Thursday, and then a stronger low to the Great Lakes, perhaps going into next Friday. That's 10 days from now, so who knows if that's exactly correct. And when you look at the overall upper air patterns, um, eh, going into April, just I guess right now what I'm kind of looking for. Oh, and that reminds me, I got to send you. Oh, I did send it to you. That whole
The heat
Scott
thing,
Briller with the heat thing. Okay.
right?
So I'm, just, now the way my mindset is going into April, I'm really itching for some warm weather, particularly because since I was down in Florida for a while, so
Yeah,
and in Georgia, so it was kind of nice to have temperatures where you could, walk around with short sleeve shirt, shorts and a short sleeve shirt. Not so much in Georgia, but down in Florida certainly. Looking at the overall pattern in the long range, you know, it's the same nonsense. Even now the models trying to show some blocking developing up in Greenland. Of course, now it's not there. Uh, I don't even know why we think that this that it's one of these days it's going to be there. I don't know. We sort of always look uh, because God, I don't even know how to put it into words anymore. It's been so frustrating to try to even see any remote attempt at blocking in the winter in the winter time. You're supposed to get it in the spring. Hang on, I got to fix my screen here, Joe. There you are. Okay, let me get rid of this. All right. So we're back full screen.
Well, we should tell people that to put a big red circle around Monday of next week because we tentatively have lined up, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get this a special guest on Joe and Joe. We mentioned this on Sunday morning. Those of you who have ever seen the weather360.com website, and especially if you go on their website, take a look at the dashboard, which updates each week and contains a plethora of interesting climatological and meteorological information. The president of that company is Mr. Bill Kirk, who refers to himself, by the way, on Weather Trends as Captain Kirk, and seems like a very interesting guy. They do a lot of interesting things over at Weather Trends 360, such as make long-range predictions for garment and clothiers as to how cold weather or warm weather will affect their prices and affect their sales. And he makes long-range predictions up to a year in advance. And we talked about on Sunday morning, how they're going for 20 named storms, La Nina entering the picture later on in the season, possibly some action along the eastern seaboard. We even showed the diagram, the graphic that they have on Weather Trends 360 regarding the hurricane season. Anyway, Bill Kirk, I spoke with him a few hours ago, and tentatively he is going to be coming on with us on Joe and Joe on Monday night.
He won't know what hit him. Well, we're very much looking forward to having him on. We'll have some fun,
Yeah.
for sure. So mark that down on your calendars, folks, and let's play Jeopardy. Do 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 do. So tonight on Briller Jeopardy, Mr. Rayo, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. April 1915 is the only April this occurred in. Wait a minute. This is hold on. I got to reword this.
Why, if you read it the way he wrote it?
Oh, no. April 1915 is the only April that this occurred in New York City's 150-year weather history. Good luck. So April 1915 is the only April this has occurred in New York City's weather history.
Wasn't that the April where we had the 10 inches of snow on April 15th? Or
Okay, perhaps, but that is not what makes it stand out.
okay, I'm trying to think.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me help you with this. Okay, if it's quite possible that if we get snow in April this year, that it would of consequence that this would be the second time that this would have happened.
The only time that okay, so it's the only time in April that the greatest amount of snow fell during a particular winter season.
See, I didn't have to draw you I didn't have to draw you a diagram for that one. Yes.
Either in a single day or in an entire month.
No, the month. So in other words, April would be the snowiest month of the whole winter season.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it's April 1915 is the only time where April was the snowiest month of that particular winter season. So April of the winter of 1415, 1914, 1915.
Joe, I have a visitor.
Is it Mrs. Rayo? Bless her heart. Let me remove my personage from the screen. Hold on. And Mrs. Rayo has to get closer to Mr. Rayo. Closer.
This is the main deal, Joe. So if I'm not in it, it doesn't really matter, does it?
So is that so? Hold it up higher, because this way. So this is our soda bread creation.
That's right.
Okay. So what? My thing with soda bread is that I like it, but one of the things that's really tough about it is that sometimes it can turn out to be dry. But you have little secret things that you do in order to prevent that, correct?
Little secret things that I do. Okay. Well,
Please don't be Martha Stewart on us now. you,
no.
where you tell us to use like.
Well, I do put raisins in there, and as the recipe states, and I put it on your Facebook page. I think it's there now. Um, the raisins have to be soaked in hot water for a few minutes or 5 minutes or so, and drained. Also, the raisins should go into the flour before you add the wet ingredients.
Okay.
This way they don't sink into the bottom of the
Well,
dish.
we can't have sinking raisins, for God's sake.
No,
No, that would be that's
not.
just wrong.
And this one you don't have to knead or put out on a board and knead with flour or anything like that. You just put it into a greased pan,
Okay.
and so that's really easy. And before you put it into the oven, you should give it a good 10 to 20 minutes time sitting just on top of the oven to let the leavening agents, the baking soda, the baking powder, do its job. You might even see it rise a little bit in the pan before you put it into the oven, and that'll create a lighter loaf.
Awesome. Very good. See now, Joe, if we ever have martial law and they shut off electricity, you would never starve to death because Mrs. Rayo will find all sorts of ingenious ways of not only feeding you, but I'm sure she could probably build a generator from scratch.
I don't know about that.
Renata, listen, I'm kidding around, but he knows, as I've said this. It's wonderful that you're so able to do a lot of this, a lot of the mechanical stuff that a lot of guys wouldn't even try to do. I think it's great.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
only you would understand this, Joe. Only you. I've suddenly am having a Stan and Floss Dworkin minute
Oh
moment,
yes, yes, yes.
right?
I do remember.
Yeah.
Good. Take it away.
In better clothes, by the way.
Excuse me?
Wearing better clothes.
Yeah, Stan used to come into the studio looking like a lumberjack sometimes.
Oh God, I always used to think that it was Floss that looked like. Oh God, am I going to get in trouble?
Ah,
Are they still with us? Okay, so it looks like we're reconnected. Hang on a second.
you're back.
Yeah,
Whoops.
boy, boy, if they have passed, they are in control here because I can't even find where's my your full screen. I can't even find my where I am. Where's my video? Oh, there I go. Ah,
I
boy,
was
that was strange. They're
before we
in.
were so
They,
rudely interrupted.
they may
Some
be in
of you
here.
remember Stan and Floss Dworkin because they used to be on the radio, at least here in the Hudson Valley, and I think even in New York on the late lamented, I think WYNY, an NBC FM radio station back in the 70s and 80s, and they used to come on at News 12 Long Island. Uh, Stan would regale us with, stuff like how to use your chainsaw, and Floss would come out with stuff like how to make soda bread, and then Stan would demonstrate how to cut the bread with the chains.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die tonight.
uh, yeah, that was just kind of weird. I took an internet hit apparently. Um,
Right at the moment we were making fun of Stan and Floss.
exactly. So they may be in this room. I better watch. I better keep my eye on the ceiling that it may not come crashing down or
Right.
something. So I guess that pretty much wraps it up tonight, Joe. There really isn't too much else happening.
No, not really. I guess we'll just shut down now, and with any luck at all, we'll be back tomorrow, unless martial law has been declared. But even then, we'll all be in here, and
Yeah, we'll still be lurking about, so you don't have to worry about us disappearing. We'll be here. All
yes,
right. What's that?
yes, I said yes. And if she's still around, maybe I can arrange with my good friend Andrew Maniglia. Maybe we can get an interview with Sister Charles Edwards.
Boy, now no, Sister Charles Edwards can't possibly still be here.
Well,
You you never know.
I was talking with Andy on Sunday, and he says that there
And
was
don't
one.
forget, Sister Gabriella's on, but she's watching
Right.
tonight, so be
No,
nice.
but he said that that one of the nuns from St. Benedict's, not Sister Charles Edwards, is indeed still with us, and she's like 98 years old. So I don't
Wow.
know exactly how old
God
Sister
bless her.
Charles Edwards was, but she may still be around. I don't know.
She probably still has a solid right hook like she used to. Oh God. Anyhow, I always think, when I think back, the movie Sister Act, and Mary Wicks played one of the nuns, and
Right.
she talked about how her days up in the convent, way up in northern Canada, in the depths of winter, and those, she would say, like, those were the days when nuns were really nuns.
And
Everybody have it easy. In
and
all
only somebody who went to Catholic school would understand that.
in all seriousness, if you ever want to see a real, and I mentioned this once before, because I'm a big fan of classic movies. If you ever want to see a movie that shows Audrey Hepburn, who is a beautiful, beautiful woman, in a movie that she did in 1957 called The Nun's Story, which is actually based on a true story. Um, you know, she's in that movie with very little makeup on, and it's really about a rather strict convent life and her struggle between wanting to be a good nun and a good nurse. And it's a well done movie. It got numerous Academy Award nominations. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. I think it's Fred Zinnemann was the director, if I remember correctly. But definitely on. Hey, if everybody's sitting at home, Turner Classic Movies and just start watching stuff. Yeah, it's
Right.
really the best way.
Absolutely.
I just binge watched 5 episodes of Perry Mason now that I'm all caught up from being away on my trip, and yeah, so you're going to certainly have plenty of time to do this sort of stuff.
It's always great to see people on Perry Mason who we recognize from other roles, like Uncle Joe from Petticoat Junction, Edgar Buchanan,
Andrew
and
Buchanan.
Jackie Coogan, who was Uncle Fester on The Addams Family, and Commissioner Gordon from Batman.
Oh yeah, he was. Actually saw in the last couple of weeks there were one, two, 3 episodes of him with him in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, very popular.
Yes. Neil Hamilton.
Neil Hamilton. That's
Yes.
right.
All right. Let's wrap it up. Have a great night. Everybody stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. And that's it. Good night, everybody.
Night.